Well, welcome back, y'all. It is time for another fun-filled video. As you know, we just got done talking about polygons, and of course, we're going to do a quick review. So remember, polygons have these four characteristics that I, for some reason, decided to make letters, right? So a polygon is a shape that it has three or more sides. So that is one thing that must be. It must be a closed shape. And again, we just talked about this stuff, so do not worry, meaning that there are no openings in it. So that would be, well, that was a pretty bad example, kind of a closed shape, right? Where something like that would be an open shape. There are no intersecting lines. So again, there's nothing crossing over, like that doesn't work. That is not a polygon. And all of our sides are straight, right? These are the things that make a polygon. And then with that being said, so again, the circle, not a polygon. With that being said, we looked at the different types of polygons, right? Like things that we already know. Like we know that we have a triangle, which is literally just a three-sided polygon, and we'll talk more about that later. But today we're going to focus on the quadrilateral. Quadrilateral. It's not really how I would pronounce that. And quad refers to four, and lateral refers to side. So that's what we're going to take a dive into today. We're going to look at the world of the quadrilateral. We're going to understand what makes a quadrilateral, what are the different types of quadrilaterals, and how many times in this video I also can just say the word quadrilateral. That's not true. That's not what we're learning. So don't count. Take notes and sit on this other stuff. So quadrilateral. So here we go. So like I said, quadrilateral. A quadrilateral is a polygon, right? So if we think about the whole overarching beginning of everything, there is a polygon first. And then a quadrilateral is basically a four-sided polygon. That's what a quadrilateral means. So any polygon that has four sides becomes a quadrilateral. So make sure, we got this written down. We're making sense of this. What's really cool about it is all of this kind of has categories. So like you have a polygon, and then one kind of polygon is a quadrilateral. It's a four-sided polygon. And then quadrilaterals themselves, they actually break into two categories from there. So your first category is known as a parallelogram. Parallelogram. And again, at any point, feel free to pause this video to write these things down. And then after that, you have a trapezoid. So these are the first subcategories of quadrilaterals, which are subcategories of polygons. So you can see all these things kind of build on each other. So next, we're going to just dive into like the differences between the parallelogram and the trapezoid. So we're going to jump over to another page, and we're going to talk about the trapezoid. So let me jump pages here. Whoa, excuse me. Okay, so a trapezoid. So one thing we do know about a trapezoid is that, for starters, it is a quadrilateral. It is also a polygon, right? So it is also a polygon. Well, it's first a polygon, then it's a quadrilateral. Man, so many words. And then it becomes a trapezoid. And what a trapezoid means is this, right? It is four-sided, which we know, right? Because it's a quadrilateral and it's a polygon. And within that, the only other characteristic that makes a trapezoid besides being four-sided is that it has one pair of parallel lines. So what that means is this. So we're going to do a little background back to the parallel lines world. If you think about parallel lines, these are lines that we find out in space, if you will, out in those coordinates that we studied that refer to two lines that literally go on at the same distance apart, and they will never intersect or they'll never cross, right? And so that would also make sense because remember, part of being a polygon is there's no intersecting lines. So parallel lines, people often say, you think about it like train tracks would be a good way to think about parallel lines. They keep the same distance from each other and they never cross over. So that's what a parallel line is. Now, a trapezoid has one set of these in its shape. And so that's going to make more sense. And what I mean by a set is like this. So this, what I'm circling right now, that's a set. Two lines together make a set, like a set of skis or I don't know, a pair of shoes, I guess, pair or set. So when we think about then that trapezoid, we are thinking about a closed off four-sided shape with only one set. So here's what I'm going to do first. I'm actually going to draw over here. Here's my parallel lines. So although those lines stop right there, right? Like, and lines do go on forever, but we are making this shape. We have to remember that like there's these vertex here that, whatever, have coordinates somewhere. We're not going to get into the coordinates here. But then if I'm going to make this a closed off four-sided shape, then I could close this here and I could close this here like this. And voila, that's a trapezoid. And as you can see with that purple, those are those parallel lines. Whereas the like brownish tan lines, those aren't perpendicular because, or sorry, parallel, because if you think about it, right, these lines go on forever. And if they go on forever, eventually they're going to cross over here, right? And this line like goes on this way and this line goes on this way. So they'll never cross there, but they definitely cross here. Whereas with the purple parallel lines, and this is what gets confusing, it's like we have to imagine these lines go on forever outside of the shape. And again, if you look at those, look at them go. They'll never cross, right? This top line will always go this way or this way, and the bottom line always goes this way and this way. Therefore, they will never cross. And so that's what makes a trapezoid. A trapezoid is just a four-sided closed off shape polygon. So, it's closed, it's got straight edges, for three or more sides, in this case, four sides, because it's a quadrilateral. And that's what makes a trapezoid. So a trapezoid is a four-sided quadrilateral that is a polygon that only has one pair of parallel lines in it. And that's it. That's just it for the trapezoid. And I know you're probably saying, what do you mean that's it? That was like a million things and 6 different vocabulary words, and that I understand. But that is truly our only definition of a trapezoid. I said earlier that quadrilaterals get broken into 2 categories, right? There we go, categories. And trapezoid was the one we just talked about, this one right here. And then there's parallelogram. Now, parallelograms actually have way more to them. So that's why I started with the trapezoid, because there's actually more. So we have more to do. So let's now talk about the parallelogram. Woo! Okay, so much. I love it. This is content. This whole unit is just vocab word after vocab word. So get ready to write things down. All right, so a parallelogram. Right, the next category of a quadrilateral parallelogram. Oh boy. A parallelogram is again a quadrilateral, but in this case, the only thing else to it is, well, it's four-sided, obviously, because it's a quadrilateral, so it's a four-sided shape. But this one actually has 2 sets or 2 pairs of parallel lines. Okay. So what I mean by that, then, if you think about that, and you actually can make the shape, it's pretty cool. So like if I made one set of parallel lines, so let's say we have this set here and this set here, right? That's one set, right? That's one pair because there's 2 of them together. And then if I made my second set, and we'll do it in another color, then maybe I have lines going this way that are parallel, and you can see that, right? Now, sometimes people get confused. They're like, well, yeah, well, the purple and the red lines, those aren't parallel. And you're right, they don't have to be. The parallel is that opposite side. So with the purple lines, you can see like those are parallel. They'll never intersect each other. And same with the red. Like these lines will go on forever. They'll never cross. And same with the purple. This line will go this way and this way. This line goes this way and this way. Never shall those 2 purple lines ever cross paths. They'll never touch, ever. Now, when you look at this, like you're like, okay, that's kind of funky. But when you analyze and look into it, you'll see that a parallelogram that we already have, if you look, is this shape right here. And that's what we mean then by how we create the parallelogram. Is the parallelogram is only that shape. It's not the understanding of those lines that go on forever and ever. It's literally the shape of where things intersect. And remember, where they come together, we call that the vertex. Yeah, I'm bringing this up now. I didn't bring it up in the last one because I wanted to bring it up now to make sure you're still watching this video, because this will show up on your work. So that's the vertex, right? Where they cross like that, those corners. And those have coordinates. That's why we did coordinates, but we're not going to analyze the coordinates in this. We're just going to analyze understanding these shapes. So as you can see, that looks a lot like a certain shape we know. Like that kind of looks like a square, right? Could be a square. It also could be a rectangle. I don't know. Let's find out. And that's the truth, is that now as we understand parallelograms, actually there are 3 other types of parallelograms. So we're not done. So we're going to go to another page. Say what? Say yes, we are. So here we go. So this is what we've learned so far. We have a polygon. That polygon is also known as a quadrilateral. The quadrilateral is just a 4-sided polygon. Quadrilaterals can be trapezoids. And trapezoids are, again, only have one set of parallel lines. So maybe I look like this. They can also look like this. Kind of. Ooh, that was kind of rough art. Right? And then on top of that, you have the parallelogram. Okay, so parallelogram. Ooh, that's a G. That's an A. That's an M. Sorry. And the parallelogram is something that has 2 sets of parallel lines. So they end up looking like this, or maybe this, or even like this. And that's where we actually get now the different things that are parallelograms. And I'm going to give you those 3 things now. So a parallelogram is also a square. A parallelogram is also a rectangle. And a parallelogram is also a rhombus. And each one of these has its own rules too. And we kind of talked about this earlier about like understanding, like a square is not a square because we've been drawing it since we were kids. A square is a square because it actually has certain attributes or rules or characteristics that no other quadrilaterals have. So that's what makes it a square, right? It isn't just a square because I draw it that way. It's a square because it can only have special rules for itself. A square does things different than a rectangle, which does different things than a rhombus. Whatever. I'm going to talk about this forever. Instead, let's just actually get into it. So let's break apart each one of these. So now we're going to look at a square. So let's look at the square. So again, remember, we just went from polygon. You're like, I get it. I know, but I'm going to keep saying it. To quadrilateral, which is the 4-sided polygon, right? And in this case, we went to the parallelograms, which are the 4-sided polygons that are quadrilaterals that have 2 sets of parallel lines. And then one example of that is the square. The square. The square is drawn this way. So there is actually a mathematical way that we draw it. That square is drawn because it has certain attributes, meaning rules or characteristics. 1, okay, it has 4 sides of equal length. So that is one of the things that makes a square. Now, you know, we could label that. We could just say, oh, well, I know that because, well, this is 3 inches and this is 3 inches and this is 3 inches and this is 3 inches. Like that would make a square. We also can show this, and I'm going to pop those out real quick. We can also show this with just a symbol in geometry. It's pretty cool. And what I just say is this, look, line, 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 line. And all that says is every line with one of those slash lines through it, every side, I should say, every side has the same measurement. So that's one way we show equal length. I also probably should have counted out the coordinates and done it perfectly. Like it should have had 4 units in between each, or 3 units or whatever. Now, that's not the only thing that makes a square. In fact, the square has a second set of rules that are super important. That second set of rules that make a square important is that it has 4 right angles. Now, we haven't not talked about angles at all, but we are going to talk about the right angle, or what we call the 90-degree angle. The 90-degree angle is what we call that perfect corner. And we actually show that perfect corner by drawing a little like half box in the corner of each thing. So if you look at this picture right here of this square, that is actually in geometry how you draw a square. You actually don't draw it the way you've been drawing it your whole life. This is mathematically what a square looks like. So every time you draw a square in math, you actually do draw 4 equal sides, but you show the equal sides by putting the slash lines through them. And then you show 4 right angles, which is by putting those little boxes in them. Okay, so keep that in mind. Like that's kind of where we're at with that. Okay, so that's a square. So let's go on to the next form of parallelogram. See, there's so much to talk about. Oh my gosh, I got to hurry up. Otherwise, you're going to be like, this video is so long. And the next one is the rectangle. Now, here's the thing that's crazy about a rectangle. Rectangle is a parallelogram. It is a quadrilateral, so it has 4 sides. In our whole lives, we have always drawn rectangles, you know, a lot like this. And the truth is, that isn't really why a rectangle is a rectangle. It's just easier to draw it that way because when we draw it that way, it doesn't look like a square. But the truth is, the only thing that makes a rectangle is it's got 4 sides, right? Because it's a quadrilateral, so that's a must. So, you know, it does have 4 sides. But notice I just said it has 4 sides. I did not say that it has 4 equal sides. I only said 4 sides. Because the reality is a rectangle, the only thing that makes a rectangle is it has 4 right angles. That's it. And that's how we can also remember, because if you look at rectangle, it's got the word angle in it. And that's really it, right? It's not called a square tangle. It's called a square. A rectangle is called a rectangle because the only thing that makes it a rectangle is it has 4 right angles in it. That's it. Oh, and it's a parallelogram, of course, and it has 4 sides, but like we already knew that. And so when we look at this and analyze it, that's literally it. So I actually could draw this, which looks like a square, but guess what? That's a rectangle, right? I'm not telling you it's got 4 equal sides, but here's the other thing that's kind of crazy is I can draw a square, and I'm going to. Watch me. And guess what? That is also a rectangle. All squares are also rectangles. I know. I'll take a moment for your brain to just be like, what? I know your whole world has been rocked. You've been drawing shapes your whole life. And now you're like, math? How dare you? But it's true. All squares are actually rectangles. But not all rectangles are squares, because if you look at the way I drew this rectangle, it's got 4 right angles, but it doesn't have 4 equal sides. Therefore, it's not a square, but it definitely is a rectangle. And so that's why we draw it. But the truth is, by definition, the length of the sides of my rectangle have nothing to do with making a rectangle. I mean, I love this stuff, but I know already you're probably like, what the heck? Like, scratch my brain. But that's something to think about. So if we break it apart, like there's so much to think about. One, we're not even done. A square is a parallelogram. It's a quadrilateral. It's a polygon. It has 4 sides of equal length, and it has 4 right angles. That's what makes a square. But then 2, you have your rectangle, which again is a parallelogram, just like a square. It has 4 sides because it's a quadrilateral, just like a square, but it only has 4 right angles by definition. Therefore, it's its own thing, rectangle, right? I don't know why I emphasize the T. Rectangle? I don't know. But anyway, remember, because the word angles in it, that's how you remember. It only needs 4 right angles. But we're not even done with the parallelograms, because there is a third and final parallelogram we're going to look at today, and that is the rhombus. So again, the rhombus is a quadrilateral. It is a parallelogram. I kind of went out of order, so sorry. Rhombus, parallelogram, quadrilateral, polygon. And the thing is, with a rhombus is kind of like the other thing that makes a square, but it makes itself a whole thing. Whatever, that was too confusing. A rhombus itself, and we often draw them this way, just to appease us. Ooh, that's rough. That's rough. I did not draw that well. Hold on. Let me try better. Let me be better. Silence. Okay. Ooh, even that's kind of rough. But again, I'm gonna just put my symbols. So a rhombus again, it's a parallelogram, so it has two sets of parallel lines, and we can see that here, right? Here's one set going here. Those two lines will never intersect. And it's got a second line here, and those two lines will never intersect. So it's a parallelogram. It's a quadrilateral, so it has four sides. But the only thing that makes a rhombus is that it has four equal sides. That's it. So it's kind of funny because like the square needs four equal sides and four right angles. That makes a square. Rectangle only needs four right angles. It doesn't need four equal sides. That makes a rectangle. And the rhombus actually only needs four equal sides. It doesn't need to have four right angles. And so that's where things can get tricky. And really all it is often we draw it like this. It's kind of like a square on its side. But the reality is, again, this right here, that's a rhombus because it's got four equal sides. That's it. That's all it takes, which means every square is a rhombus. So every square is a rectangle, and every square is a rhombus, and every square is a square. So the square is actually kind of a magical quadrilateral. But the rhombus, that's it, right? So again, I could draw another one. I don't know. I mean, draw like this, but ooh, that's rough. That does not look like four equal sides. That's not gonna happen either. And that's the other thing is you kind of have to, okay. And then another way, like I've been showing you the one slash line, but I can also do this. And this just means, again, any lines that have two slash lines, the right or any sides are equal in size. But that's a rhombus. That's it. It's a rhombus. Okay. Here, we'll go back to the rectangle real quick because now that I think about that, right? I could say this and this, those sides are equal. I could say this and this, those two sides are equal. So that's another way of showing that. Okay, whatever. You're like, I didn't ask. Okay, so that is the rundown. That's all of it, which is a lot of stuff to talk about. But of course, I'm going to break it down one last time. So let's break it down. So we start with a polygon, right? From the polygon family, you get things like triangles and pentagons and whatnot. But what we're talking about today is the quadrilateral. So that's a real thing. Now, from the quadrilateral, the world divides into two subcategories. One is the trapezoid, and that's it. That's the end of discussion. One set of parallel lines. There's your trapezoid. But then the other branch of the quadrilateral division is the parallelogram. And the parallelogram, which is something that has two sets of parallel lines, actually divides itself into three subdivisions. You have a square, which has four. Whoa, did not want to do that. Hold on. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, I don't like it. Wrong way. Whoop. Okay. I'm gonna move this up a little bit now that I messed up the whole screen. You're like, dude, you just messed with the flow. So you have a square, which has four equal sides and four right angles. So that's a poor drawing. You have the rectangle, which again is a four-sided shape, but it just needs four right angles. And so we often draw it that way, but again, that's not it. It doesn't have to be that. And then we have the rhombus, which again is like a square, except for it just has four equal sides. Angles don't matter. And that, my friends, is it. That's it. That's it. 85 minutes later. That's all you need to know. So that is the rundown of the polygon, quadrilateral, trapezoid, parallel game. Today, you're going to continue to practice on identifying them. The more you practice it, the more it'll make sense. Trust me. I used to not know this off the top of my head, and now I've practiced it so much that like I do understand all this stuff, but it just comes with practice. That's all you need to do. So keep up the good work. We're super proud of you. And until next time, I don't know. Here's my catchphrase. Actually, I don't have one. How come I've never had a catchphrase? Keep mathing. I don't know. I need a catchphrase. Like and subscribe. Neat. Peace.